Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Sayyid Akif Shah, lecturer finance at Institute of Business Studies, Kohat University of Science and Technology. The title of this course is Intermediate Accounting, and the course code for this subject is BS 363. This is lecture number 26, and the topic for today's discussion is the lessor account under the umbrella of royalty accounts and the lease agreements, in which specifically we shall discuss the stage 2 and stage 3 entries in the books of account of lessor. The outline of this lecture comprises of the discussion related with the accounting procedures in book of lessor. Basically, we have two parties in a lease agreement. One is lessor, who is the landlord or owner of the mine or author of the book, or maybe the holder of any patent rights. And the other party is known as lessee, who is going to take that specific right, patent or mine on lease from the landlord, and hence that party is supposed to pay the royalty fee for using that specific mine, patent rights, or the copyright for publishing the book. So in this lecture, we shall discuss the entries pertaining to the stage 2 and stage 3. Basically, we have three distinct stages. Stage number 1 is regarding when the royalties are less than the minimum rent. It depends upon the deal between the lessor and lessee. When the minimum rent, when the royalty is calculated on the mines extraction, let's suppose we are taking the example of a coal mine, and when the output units is quite less than the expected minimum rent to be exceeded later on when the royalties will be calculated, then we say this is the first condition when the royalties fee might be lower than the minimum rent. Let's suppose the minimum rent of the mine was 10,000 rupees per year. However, the royalties calculated on the basis of tonnage of extraction from the mine is 8,000 rupees. So this is the case 1, which has already been discussed in detail with the numerical example in my previous lectures. So the emphasis of this lecture will be specifically on stage number 2 entries in the books of lessor. When the royalties are more than the minimum rent, this is the case where when the company or the lessee keeps on its operation and using the mines in its full capacity, and hence the royalty fee as per the formula has come up in greater denomination than the minimum rent. Like for example, the royalty fee become 14,000 on the basis of tonnage extraction of coal from the mine, and the minimum rent for that mine is 10,000 rupees. Then this is the case when royalties are more than the minimum rent, and hence it allows the lessee to recoup its short working or the extra amount what the lessee has paid in the initial years of mine usage. So we'll discuss the short working recoupment. And third, when the time has been expired, like it is in the deal of the lease between lessor and lessee that for the next 2 years or 3 years short working can be recouped. But what happened when that time expire? We'll discuss the accounting entry and treatment for that case as well. So long as the short working account shows a credit balance, basically this short working in the books of lessor is a liability account because that is recoupable. Hence, whenever this has the credit balance in the balance sheet of the lessor, it is recoupable. It will be shown in the balance sheet's liability section. Otherwise, when the time has been expired and the lessee was unable to recoup the balance, it will be transferred to the profit and loss account as a credit or income to the profit and loss account of the landlord or lessor. So entries in the books of lessor, let's have a journal understanding regarding lessor receives the income or royalty or minimum rent or the agreed royalty, whichever is greater. So it must be clear that the lessor will receive either the minimum rent or the royalty, whichever is greater. In the books of the lessor, the royalty account is considered as an income account, so therefore it shows a credit balance with the amount of royalty based on actual output from that mine. Third, the amount of short working suspense account, as we are dealing with the books of lessee, with the books of lessor, the landlord. Therefore, the short working account will be changed with the title of suspense account, because the landlord is in the suspense. Either this amount will be recouped by the lessee in the subsequent years, and if the lessee was unable to recoup that amount, it will be transferred to the profit and loss account. So this is the reason short working suspense account has been written, and it is carried forward throughout the period during which such short working are recoverable by the lessee according to the terms of sales. But when that time period has been expired, lessee has no right at all to claim for the recoupment of short working, and that will be transformed into the profit and loss account of the lessor. So the amount of short working which is irrecoverable within the given time period, it will be credited to the profit and loss account of the landlord. Let's discuss the stage 2 entries. And the case explains that when the royalty exceeds the minimum rent and short working are recouped. Let me select the pen. Assume that the minimum rent decided between lessor and lessee is 10,000 rupees, and in the subsequent next year, basically this lecture is in continuity to my previous lecture when I have discussed the lessee books of account, lessor book of accounts, when the lessee has paid short working in the first year of operation, but in the subsequent next year, once again the deal says the minimum rent between two parties, party A and party B, is 10,000 rupees. Party A was considered as the lessor or landlord, and the party B is, for instance, the lessee or who has taken mine from party A in order to extract the coal. So the minimum rent decided to be paid by party B to party A is rupees 10,000. This has been decided. However, in the next year, the second year, the company has utilized, by company I mean this party B, lessee has utilized the mine in its goods capacity and extracted 7,000 tonnage of coal, and per ton royalty fee is rupees 2. So therefore the total royalty for the second year come up with 14,000 rupees. So now the royalty in the second year is 14,000, and hence the royalty exceeds the minimum rent of 10,000. So the lessee has the right to recoup its short working what he has paid in the first year of operation, when the royalty was 8,000 and the lessee has paid 10,000 rupees. So 2,000 rupees were the short working account balance in the first year in this lease agreement, which shall be recouped in the subsequent year. So let's discuss first entry, how to record such kind of lease agreement when the royalties exceed the minimum rent. As we can see that royalty in this case is 14,000. However, the minimum rent is 10,000. So how to record such entries in the books of account of the lessor? So for amount becoming due, the landlord will debit 14,000 worth of lessee account. This lessee account is actually an asset account or account receivable in particular, I can say, which shall be collected later on from the lessee against the royalty fee. So when there is increase in account receivable, it is recorded as debit. So same has been done. Similarly, there is a credit entry with the title of royalty account, and this royalty account is basically an income or revenue for the landlord. Therefore, increase in revenue is recorded as credit entry. So we have done the same credit entry with 14,000 rupees of royalty, which will be paid by party B to party A. However, as we have 2,000 rupees of recoupment in the first year, short working in the first year, which will be claimed or recouped in the subsequent year. So we will have the second entry of recoupment. For recouping the short working by the lessee, what will be the journal entry? Party B will claim to recoup the short working paid in the first year. So therefore, the short working suspense account, this short has been written, this was missed in the book. So the short working suspense account should be debited, as it generally shows credit balance with in the liability section of the landlord. So this liability has been decreased of the landlord. So therefore, when there is decrease in the liability, it is recorded as debit entry. And similarly, the lessee's account, which is account receivable by the landlord, it is an asset account, and when there is a decrease in asset, it will be recorded as credit. So same has been done with 2,000. Hence, the lessee has recouped its 2,000, what was paid in excess to the royalty fee in the first year by the lessee to the landlord. So in the subsequent second year, the lessee has claimed for the recoupment of 2,000 of extra amount. And this is the journal entry, how to do that. And then to write down a short narration, that is being the recoupment of short working. This narration explains what has happened in the above entry. Let's come towards third entry, which deals with the amount received. Now it's time that the lessee is going to pay the royalty fee by subtracting the recoupment amount. So the royalty fee was basically 14,000. However, he has recouped 2,000 out of this. Therefore, the cash received by the landlord will be 12,000 only. And when there is increase in cash, it is an asset account, and increase in asset is recorded as debit entry. So debit 12,000. These values are hypothetical, and what we are discussing in order to explain these journal entries in a numerical case. So the lessee's account, which was the account receivable in the books of Lessor, has been reduced since we have collected the amount of 12,000. Therefore, decrease in asset is recorded by credit entry of 12,000. Now, in order to avoid entry 2 and 3, so that we can make a one combined entry, as we have the similar title of lessee account in both the entries. So therefore, why not to make a combined entry rather than to have two entries in the account? So we can do that. How to do that? We can simply write the cash account. It means the landlord has received 12,000 as royalty fees. The landlord's book shows 2,000 debit for short working suspense account, because this has been recouped by the lessee, and then a credit entry of 14,000 for the lessee's account, which shows the account receivable on the books of Lessor, which has been recovered and received in the form of cash receiving plus decrease in the company's liability. And then to give a shortest narration, that is being the receipt of cash from the lessee. These explanations are helpful to explain what we have selected as our numerical values over here. Now we have the final and fourth entry to transfer the royalty fee into our profit and loss account. Since we are dealing with the lessor or landlord's books of accounts, so closing entry for royalty account is to decrease the royalty account, because royalty is a revenue account, and when there is decrease in royalty account, it will be recorded as a debit entry. So we can give a debit of 12,000, which was the royalty received by the landlord, and this royalty has been shifted or transferred to the profit and loss account of the company, which has a normally credit balance, and when there is increase in the profit and loss account, it will be recorded as credit. So this 12,000 rupees has been shifted or transferred to the profit and loss account of the lessor with the royalties due for the year. So the company has realized 12,000 of royalty and return or reduce the liability of short working suspense account. Now let's discuss stage 3, when the short working did not recoup by the lessee. Here we can see that the case explained that short working did not recoup by the lessee within due time. Let's suppose the case once again continued on what we are discussing. However, the time has been lapsed and expired, and it was 3 years to recoup, but the lessee was unable to utilize mine in its full capacity, due to which the time has expired, and that short working what has been paid as to meet the minimum rent requirement cannot be recouped by the lessee. So what kind of journal entry needs to be done in the books of account of lessor in that case? How to, another way around, I can say that where to transfer the short working suspense account balance what is being shown over the balance sheet of the company. So long as the short working account shows a credit balance on the books of the lessor, it will be shown in the balance sheet on the liability sides. However, as we can see as highlighted in pink, if the time expires but the short working have not been fully recouped, the balance outstanding must be treated as profit of the company. Now it's time that to consider that short working suspense account as the profit of the landlord and should be credited to the profit and loss account of the landlord. Here is a hint to remember the entry that in this is a reverse entry of the lessee's book of account. Basically, in the lessee's book of account, profit and loss account was debited and short working account was credited because the short working was expense for the lessee. However, in the lessor book of account, as we are dealing with the lessor's entry, who is the landlord, since the time has expired, so this short working account which shows liability or credit balance on the balance sheet of the lessor will be reduced. So when there is decrease in the liability, it will be recorded as debit. So the suspense short working account was 2,000. Let's suppose if the lessee was unable to recover that amount, it will be debited and the liability of the lessor or landlord will be vanished or written off, and this will be transformed into the profit and loss account, and this will be considered as profit of the company. Now it's another additional royalty earned by the company. So credit profit and loss account. So when there is increase in profit and loss account, it is recorded as credit entry. So we will credit the profit and loss account of the lessor. So this was the third condition, that what has been happened to the short working suspense account when the lessee is unable to recover within due time period. Let's finalize the discussion regarding this lessee and lessor books of account. So the important points to ponder while you are attempting any problem or numerical illustration are: first, to understand, to make sure that who is lessee and who is lessor or landlord. You have to read the question thoroughly and then to understand or bifurcate the parties involved in the lease agreement, who is lessee and who is the lessor or landlord. It should be cleared. Next point, when the lease is to commence, the date of commencement should be clearly mentioned so that you must not make mistake while doing the journal entries in different books of account pertaining to the lessor or lessee. So when the accounts relating to royalty are closed, it must also be clear that when the deal is going to be closed and how to close the royalty account into profit and loss account. What is rate of royalty? This is what we have been discussing in the couple of previous lectures and as well as in the numerical illustration, that the rate of royalty was rupees 2 per tonnage. This was the rate. This rupees 2 was known as rate of royalty. It must be clear. It depends upon the number of units sold. It depends upon the unit of productions like tonnage or kilograms. And when it is the royalty accounts are dealing with the selling of the books of a particular author. So the royalty depends upon the number of units sold by the publisher. The next point is to ponder is what is the amount of minimum rent. This is very important because this helps to create the short working account. So minimum rent to be paid by the lessee to the lessor should be clearly mentioned. Whether it should be a fixed or fluctuating, the minimum rent should be clear in the question, and the reader must focus or grip the point. Either it is fixed or fluctuating. What is the settlement regarding recoupment? Like how many years are provided in the lease agreement to recoup the short working. Then further, short working may also have fixed and fluctuating rate. Like it could be fixed for only first 2 years, or it could be a fluctuating deal between lessor and lessee. Like in any particular year, if the royalty fee is less than the short working, less than the minimum rent, then in the subsequent 2 years, let's suppose the lessee may recoup the short working. So such kind of condition is known as fluctuating recoupment condition. Finally, before attempting any numerical illustration, one should make an analytical table or analytical statement so that it may help the problem solver to have the grip and proper understanding how to record the journal entries in the books of lessee or the lessor. So this analytical table is really important and crucial. In order to know about what is this all about, you can check out my previous lecture, and I have explained well in detail what was the analytical table. Should be prepared, which helps in solving the problem. So these are the important points which should be there in your mind while you are attempting numerical cases or the illustrations for solving in the books of lessor or lessee account. So this was all about the entries relating to the books of lessor or landlord. Thank you very much for listening to this lecture. If you have any question, feel free to ask on KCMS, or another way around, you can also email me on my official email address mentioned in the footer of this lecture. Thank you once again. Good luck for the day. Allah Hafiz.